guys, today we're going to talk a little bit about false alerts, why they might happen, and some things we can do to address that. So the first thing we want to think about when we're talking about false alerts is a false alert really is a symptom of some confusion or a lack of clarity within your training. So what we want to look at is it that our dog has maybe a misunderstanding about odor? There's part of the odor picture that they're not really understanding, and that's causing a false alert. Or could it be more behavioral? So you've trained up this nice indication behavior. Maybe it's a sit, maybe it's a freeze, and the dog thinks that your training is a little bit more maybe about your indication versus your odor. So the dog is kind of offering this behavior regardless of whether your trained odor is there or not, and you would want to address that. So let's talk about some of the ways we could address this issue with false alerts. So if you're having a lot of false alerts, what I would generally say for that is you're going to go back and do more of your foundational work. If you're seeing it a lot, that shows me that maybe there is an issue with the dog's understanding of odor. But if it's happening, maybe not very frequently, but every once in a while, in the training moment, in that session, what should you do to address it? So one of the things you can do would be a no reward marker. So this is just information to the dog, basically telling them, hey, that's not going to get you rewarded. You can go ahead and move on. So it's not meant to be a verbal correction or a punisher. It's just meant to give the dog more information, right? So we're just letting the dog know, hey, you don't need to hold indication there. That's not going to pay you. And it lets the dog start understanding that when they hear that mark, that no reward marker, that they can quickly move on. So it prevents you from maybe accidentally building actually some nice duration into a false indication. And it just gives the dog a little bit more clarity in that communication system. So on your next rep, if you've seen a false indication, you might go ahead and mark that find faster. So when your dog comes into odor, maybe you had a 5-second indication, let's mark at 2 seconds. So we're really showing the dog, hey, the most important picture of this is odor, and that's what we're really capturing. So behavior is kind of secondary, right? We need our indication to tell us where the dog found odor, but the most important aspect is odor, and we really want to make that clear for our dog. Another thing is remember to always go back to those foundations. So we usually recommend that our students, if you're training maybe 3 or 4 days a week, half of that should be more foundational, where you're kind of building some of your, your really foundational aspects with your dog. So especially if you're having an issue like you're seeing false alerts out in your area searches. And then one of the common questions that we get, and kind of one of the common tactics that people might take when their dog goes in a false indication, is waiting the dog out. So that's definitely an option. This usually works better when the dog doesn't have a lot of duration built onto their indication, because what we can see once the dog understands that duration is part of that is we're waiting the dog out for a long time, and we actually end up building maybe more duration onto a false alert than we even necessarily have on our target odor. So we believe that communication is always better than no communication. So that's why we will use something like a no reward marker to just let the dog know, hey, that's not it, go ahead and move on. And then of course we will be addressing what we think may be the cause of that false alert, right? Because it's a symptom, not necessarily the problem. It's a symptom of a larger problem within your training. So we will always go back to foundations to kind of address it from there and really break down where was the confusion or that lack of clarity for the dog, so we can kind of address it at the root and not where we're seeing the symptom, right? We always want to fix things kind of from the ground up as opposed to a Band-Aid fix within the moment. You have to be able to handle it, obviously, within that training setup, but we're going to take the information from that training setup and kind of bring it back to our training plan with the dog and address it from a very foundational kind of root point. So in summary, when we're dealing with false alerts, we want to try to figure out, why is the dog doing it? Is it the dog's understanding of its indication behavior? Is it offering that? Or is the dog not understanding odor fully? So we need to understand that. And then we need to be able to kind of handle it within that moment. Should we wait it out? Is that beneficial for my dog? Or should we give communication and let the dog know, hey, you can move on? As always, everything is going to be individual to the dog and also the team. So, look at your dog as an individual and kind of decide, knowing your dog, what is going to work best for you. If you guys have any questions about this topic or any other topic, feel free to reach out to us, fordcanine.com.
If you would like more information about anything Detection Dog, go visit www.fordcanine.com.